In times of uncertainty, our frontliners are responding by showing up, clocking in, and keeping the city safe. That determination has inspired all of us to come together and push forward. We're honored to have other employees who put their community, their jobs, and their families first. We're proud of our employees. We're proud to support veterans. We're proud to be ways to get getting the job done. That's all done. Right now, the COVID-19 vaccine for Americans for you. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from dangerous and deadly disease. They could save your life. So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you. That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving from hungry to death. It's up to you.
Wow, Roy Williams is retiring.
Well, did you just wake up?
No, I just checked ESPN.com for the first time.
Just kidding.
Yeah. Good morning, all. Welcome to our first Zoom with Athletic Director Rick George in a while. He's a little busy, as you can see. So Rick will open up and run through some updates for us. We're entering the final quarter of the athletic and academic and fiscal year. So we thought it'd be a good time for him to touch base with our beat media and take some questions as well. So further ado, would you like to lead off with a few topics?
Sure. Appreciate everybody being on the call, and I wouldn't necessarily call this the state of CU athletics, but it's something that we've been doing, and we weren't able to do it last time we were together, and so appreciate everybody being on the call, and I will run through a few topics and then open it up for any questions that you have, and happy to answer anything that's on your mind. And I first want to start off by just quickly touching on the tragedy that occurred last week in our community. It was an awful day for our community. There's no place for these kind of acts of violence, and I told our student athletes that now's the time to come together, and we need to heal, and it's been just a tough thing for our community, and my heart goes out to the victims and their families, and it's just a tragedy. So I just wanted to start with that, because it's hard to not talk about that after what went on, and so anyway, my thoughts and prayers are with the families and the victims that we lost. So on a happier note, good luck to the Rockies today. I'm really excited that they're going to have fans in the stadium, and turning on the news last night and seeing the Avalanche and the Nuggets having fans. And I think they said on one of the news shows this morning that it's been 550 days since the Rockies have been able to have fans in the stadium. So really, really happy for them. Also want to talk about the past 12 months. I think it was a little more than a year ago. I think it was March 12th that the pandemic hit, and we were at the basketball tournament, and I remember coming back, and after getting beat by Washington State, it wasn't a fun trip home anyway, and then to come back and meet with our student athletes that night, and our world kind of turned upside down, and has been for the last 13 months. There's been a lot of ups and downs. We also had last summer, social justice issues, the killing of George Floyd and others. And it's just been a year filled with a lot and a lot for our student athletes, our staff, and I applaud all of them for staying focused on what they needed to do to be able to compete successfully, this past year, and we're still ongoing with that, and really proud of what we've done in our athletic department, serving our student athletes in all the areas that we promised them. With all the distractions that we've had from we're going to play, we're not going to play, we're going to do this, we're not going to do that. We can't work out, we can work out. It's only one person or 20 that can be together at one time. We still haven't been able to have big meals together. For us to stay focused, our student athletes and our staff and coaches to stay focused on our mission, and that's creating a world-class experience for our student athletes, competing for and winning championships. I'm really proud of what we've been able to do, the protocols that we've put into place. I think to date, we've had 14,395 tests with 92 positive, which is a 0.64%. And I'm proud of our student athletes, for the discipline that they've had. We've had our bumps in the road. Some of them haven't adhered to policies, and we had some student athletes. But what I'm proud of is we're 13 months into this, and we haven't had the virus enter our facilities, and really proud of that and the discipline that our student athletes have shown over the last year, and couldn't be happier with them and Jason DePape and Miguel Rueda putting these protocols in place for our coaches and our student athletes. Have done just an amazing job. Our nutrition staff, we're feeding every day, twice a day, grab and go, and the work that they've put in. All of our trainers have become, I joke about this, lab technicians, because they test every single day. We have 5 days a week that we're still testing our student athletes, and it doesn't stop. But I think that's part of our ability to be able to compete. All of our teams are competing right now. We've completed about 6 or maybe 7 sports to date that are done. For men's basketball to play 31 games, that's pretty phenomenal in a pandemic indoors. So proud of what they've done. We've also, stayed focused on our strategic plan. We introduced our next 3-year mission, which I know you all have seen, and we're really focused on our whole athlete program and our partnership with Kittman Labs and getting data and analytics on all the areas that touch our student athletes, from nutrition to sleep to strength and conditioning to injury prevention, all those different things. And at some point, I'd love to have a broader discussion with you on that as we look at the dashboard and what that tells us as we move forward. Also in this year, our student athletes have done an incredible job in academics. We matched the student body GPA for the first time in our history, our highest GPA, both cumulative and semester. This past semester, and you think about the ups and downs that we had. Well, we're not going to play until January 1st. Now we are going to play, and then getting our other sports engaged to be able to stay focused on that. I give Chris Livingston and her team a lot of kudos for what they've been able to do. And then you look at our teams. Where our football team went to a bowl game, and proud of their ability to do that. We lost 3 games. We were able to make up 1. And still be able to go to a bowl game. Our basketball team, men's basketball, they had a great run. We just fell a little short against Florida State. Tough matchup, but to be able to get to the NCAA tournament, to play the way we did against Georgetown when we got out there, give a lot of credit to Tad and his staff and the student athletes. For what they've been able to do. Our women's basketball going to the WNIT, I'm really proud of that from their perspective, because that was important to get back into the postseason, and maybe 1 win away from being in the NCAA tournament. And we know how well our colleagues have done, to have 2 of our women's basketball programs in our conference in the Final Four for the women's NCAA championship is an incredible feat, and it just shows the quality of basketball on the women's side. And then our men, what a run our other teams in our conference have made, and we've got one in the Final Four. I mean, I've been saying for the last couple of years, all this is a cycle, right? We didn't get a lot of credit and a lot of for what our basketball programs are like in our conference to finish the regular season and us to be highest ranked at 22. I was never thought that was right, but we've got to do a better job of promoting our basketball programs throughout the country, and because what we just did is, I think, one of the best in the history of a conference in the NCAA tournament. So really proud of our conference in that. Also, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Richie Rokos and them finishing second in the NCAA and him ending his tenure at CU. He's done an incredible job for us, and really proud of what his team has been able to accomplish. And he leaves quite the legacy in our ski program, and being able to hire Andy Leroy as the ski coach, who's got ties, having been a student athlete at CU. He's got a great reputation, and we're really excited about where we think that program can go under his leadership. We had some success in our cross country with Eduardo Herrera winning the Pac-12 individual championship, and then both of our teams finishing second in the conference. Really happy for that program. From a budgetary standpoint, there hasn't been much that has changed. We are still looking at a $18 to $20 million deficit. We continue to look at everything that we're doing, from an expenditure standpoint. We'll see what the NCAA comes up with as it relates to where recruiting's going after the end of May. We have a dead period until that point. And so, what happens in June, we'll get a little more direction on that. And we'll start looking at, where we think next year will be. We're going to plan for different scenarios as we put our budget together. I'm really, like I said, I'm really pleased to see the Rockies being able to have the 50% of people in their venue, and then starting to see more people at the Avalanche and the Nuggets. I think gives us a lot of optimism, but cautious optimism for what the fall will look like. I'm excited that we started our spring practice in football. We're winding down with women's volleyball, and soccer's in the middle of their season. All of our sports are going. And I think the last time we talked, I said it's probably the first time in our history that 16 of our 17 sports are competing at the same time. And it's been a real challenge for our staff, for our facilities, because, typically you have a group in the fall and a group in the spring that are in their season. You combine them all together. The impact that's had on our staff has been pretty incredible. But I'm really excited about how I think we'll finish and where we're going. But it's been a really difficult few months, and actually 13 months that has been really challenging for our staff. But everybody stayed together. We've got an incredible team over here. I'm excited about what's ahead, what next year could potentially look like. And I look forward to seeing all of you in person at some point in the near future. So with that, I know that was probably longer than you wanted to hear me talk, but I'll open it up for whatever questions that you have at this point.
Okay, if you have a question for Rick, just indicate in the chat area, then I will call on you. And, Rick was right about all the events at one time. If you wanted to have the front page of the website, you had to finish the last hour of the day.
Pretty true stuff.
So first up's Terry Frei.
You have a feel for how many fans you will be allowed to have in the fall? Do you have a hope for that? Do you have any kind of indication yet on the where you will be able to go with that?
Well, look, I think I've said that the optimistic side of me says I'd love to. I think we've got a great home schedule in football and men's basketball. I think we could fill it. if we have the opportunity to do that. But we'll work closely with our county and our state on what they will allow. We'll adhere to their guidelines, and I'm hopeful that we can learn a lot from what the Rockies are doing and what the other professional supports are doing right now. But our desire would be to put as many people as we can safely into our stadium and into our event center this winter. So, we'll look at a variety of different scenarios, Terry, that kind of like we did last year. I think, I told you that we were going to have a 90, 70, 50 scenario, and unfortunately we ended at a 50% scenario. And if you look at our budget, that's kind of where we're at. We're about 50% off in our revenue, and that has to do with the fact that we didn't have any fans in our stadium or our arena this year, paying fans, and we're probably down about 50% in conference distribution. So those two numbers combined put us kind of where we are. So the ticket piece is really important for us. And like I said, I know we've learned some things. We created an app, for that we were going to use had we been able to give fans that I think will allow us to know and be able to contact trace and do all those different things. And, again, we'll just take our direction from the county and the state.
Adam Munster Tiger.
Hi, Rick. Thanks for taking the time out to do this. As vaccines become more readily available, how will your athletic department handle that? Do you simply encourage student athletes to get a vaccine, or is it kind of up to the individual to make that decision?
Well, look, it's going to be up to the individual to make the decision. We're going to strongly encourage that. I've been fortunate. On the first day, I was able to get in when my group came up, and I'm totally vaccinated. And but we're going to encourage our student athletes and our staff to get vaccinated. But it's certainly an individual decision, and we will respect that decision. And that's kind of where we are on that. And, we'll continue to do the testing that our conference and the NCAA and CDC recommends, as we go into the summer and the fall. But again, we'll be nimble and we'll be ready to go, whatever's put out there in front of us.
Hey, Pat Rooney.
Hey, Rick.
Hey, Pat.
Wondering if Tad or any of the coaches, but I know Tad's due soon. Has anyone offered to pass on their contract incentives this year, like Tad did last year with the NCAA tournament?
Again, those bonuses, I think, as I've said before, that it's the coach's choice. If we have a coach that's contractually obligated that I don't have discretion, then we will offer that to those coaches, and it's typically the head coach. But if I have discretions, we are not offering postseason bonuses.
Okay, Justin Guerrero.
Rick, a few minutes ago, you mentioned the recruiting dead period and it potentially ending at the end of May. I'm just wondering from your perspective, and as a guy who has a lot of roots in recruiting, do you have any optimism that we are going to see an end to that recruiting dead period at some point in the summer? And the way you see things, just as we as a society continue to open up, do you see that as viable in the sense of being able to conduct in-person activities with prospective recruits in a safe manner?
I do. And I think what we will see, but again, the council, I think, is meeting in the next 2 weeks, and they'll make some determination on that. But my guess is where we will start is a quiet period, which means our coaches can't go out and recruit, but we can have student athletes on our campus. And I think that's kind of a start to, getting back to some sense of normalcy. But I also think that we've learned a lot from this. I told Tad, go play golf every day and recruit like you had the best class in your history. So shit, you don't need to be on the road. I think there's some things that we've learned from this that we ought to take. And look, I personally, I know how coaches are. They want to be on the road. They want to recruit, and I get it. But if there's an opportunity for us to give them some days back from not being on the road in the future, because we've learned how to do it virtually, we've learned how to recruit in that manner, that we ought to create something that gives them some of their life back where they can be with their families. And I would think coaches would want to support that. But, I'm hopeful that the NCAA and the different oversight committees look at that to see, because again, I think we should learn something from this pandemic. And again, we've recruited well, not having been able to go out into homes, but there's another way to do it. I didn't even know much about Zoom and Microsoft Teams a year ago, and now I'm somewhat of an expert. At least I can talk to you. Probably don't know how to go into the chat, but other than that, I've learned a lot, and I think our coaches have too. So we'll see what happens, but I do think that it'll go from a dead to a quiet period. I'm hopeful that it does, and then we'll put our protocols in place, and I think every school will on student athletes coming in and how many, and those different things, and how we will do it properly to meet our county guidelines.
Hey, Rick, is that decision holding up coaches from scheduling their camps?
No, I think camps is a little bit different too. I think again, we'll work with campus on that because I think that's important, and how we do that. I think the outdoor sports will be a little easier to do right now, because we can properly social distance and do the things that we need to do in the guidelines. So I think it's part of that, Dave, but I know there's some of our sports that want to have camps, and there's some that are kind of like, I'm not sure that's the direction we want to go at this point. So we're just kind of seeing what our county and state and where we move to.
Let's go down to New Mexico and Mr. Neil Welk.
Hey, Rick, just a quick question. How closely are you following the Alston case in the Supreme Court, and what do you see happening with all of that?
Well, I think what we saw yesterday was, two sides that have differing opinions. And, I think, we'll see where it ends up. There's a lot of things that could potentially happen with that, but I don't think we'll get a ruling until probably May or June. And at that point, we'll be able to react to whatever comes out of that, and what impact does that have on NIL. I think that's still up in the air. And, again, I'm on that committee, and we're still working on what our final proposal is. But I do know that it's extremely difficult to have 50 different rules in 50 different states, and trying to keep recruiting at least somewhat balanced in that. So, we'll see where the courts come out, and we'll be ready to react in whatever the way it ends up in May or June, whenever that ruling comes out.
Let's go to Matt Schubert, Denver Post.
Hi, Rick. Just one question. You had mentioned about having a shortfall with revenue this year. And I'd seen previously you guys had said that you would be borrowing from the Pac-12 loan program. Is that still the case? And how much will you be borrowing?
Well, yeah, that's still the case. And our deficit, as I said, is somewhere between 18 and 20, and that hasn't changed. And we'll borrow through them. We'll work through that once we know what the number is. But as far as the terms go of what that would look like, it's probably something that we'll take out of future distributions, and we'll budget appropriately to be able to do that. But that's where we expect to fund this deficit at this point.
Okay, Reed Fisher, who's using Dave Logan's computer.
I wonder if Dave was on. Go ahead, Reed.
You're on mute, Reed.
Reed, you might want to unmute.
There we go. Sorry about
See,
that.
I've learned how to do that. So
I need to join the club, apparently. Piggybacking off the revenue question, the Pac-12 has made a great run in the NCAA tournament with UCLA in the Final Four and 3 teams in the Elite Eight. How much does that trickle down to help CU, and from a revenue standpoint and also a perception standpoint with the Pac-12?
Well, from a revenue standpoint, it really doesn't impact us this year, and that's over a 6-year time frame is how they do that. And so, we won't see the impact of that in this fiscal year, and we'll see what impact it has on next fiscal year and where those units are. But I think from a perception standpoint, I think our conference has made a significant statement to be able to have 5 teams in there versus some that had 9 in a conference, to be able to make the run that our conference made. I mean, if you think about where UCLA has come from, they were a play-in, one of the 4 play-ins that won, and now they're in the Final Four. And that's pretty significant. And the fact that, we went into the Sweet 16 with 4 of our teams, and unfortunately USC and Oregon had to play against each other. But that's just the way the ball bounces. But I think the reputation of our conference has taken a positive hit, which I think is important for us, because I do think in both football and basketball, we had a short season in football, and I kind of get that. I didn't really get the basketball piece on why we didn't get more, positive thoughts on our conference and the quality of our basketball in our conference. But, we've got really good coaches in basketball, really good coaches in football. We've scheduled non-conference in football really well this year. If you look at our conference schedule, we have a number of key matchups against the Big Ten, the SEC, the Big 12, and the ACC. So, I think this will be an opportunity for our football programs around our conference to do some significant things with these non-conference games, and with us playing A&M in Denver. I think that's going to be great exposure for our program, and I think they've already been listed as a top 5 team in the country. So that'll give us an opportunity to kind of see where we're at.
Okay, let's go back to Terry Frei.
You've mentioned the fan situation at Folsom Field and your hopes there. Multiple entities are involved. We all know that. But is Boulder going to be more conservative on allowing fans, you think, than the Rockies, Broncos, and obviously the indoor games with the Avalanche and Nuggets? Are you concerned at all about whether Boulder will be more conservative about allowing fans in than the rest of the state?
I'm not worried about it. I mean, we'll work with the county, and again, we'll work with the state, and our hope is that, it'll be consistent across the entire state on what that looks like by the time we get to the middle of the summer. I mean, if everybody can start getting vaccinated starting tomorrow, I think that gives us great hope that, we'll be able to come back and be able to put a lot of fans in Folsom Stadium and in our event center. So, we'll continue to work with them. And again, we've had to adjust in a variety of different ways over the past 13 months. And I still see some of that as we move forward, but, we'll lay out our plan. And I thought we had a great one this year to be able to allow fans in our stadium. And, again, we'll work with the county and see where we're at middle of summer.
And Matt Schubert once again.
Hi, Rick. I wanted to ask about the Pac-12 looking for its new commissioner. What do you think the Pac-12 should be doing as far as what sort of candidate do you hope they bring in?
Well, I hope they bring in a candidate that, the first thing I would say is I think it's a great job, because I think there's a tremendous amount of upside, to us, to get our reputation at a higher level than it currently is, and to do some things from a TV perspective with our Pac-12 networks and everything. I think it's a tremendous opportunity for someone to be able to bring this conference to another level. We've got great TV markets. We've got great programs. I mean, you look at the number of championships we win and what our men's and women's basketball team are doing. I think there's a tremendous upside. What I hope is that we get somebody that has campus experience. I don't necessarily think they need TV experience because they've got to be a good negotiator, of course, when we're sitting in that room and talking about what our media rights look like moving forward. I think we need to hit the ground running on that because I don't know that you need to wait till 23, 24. I think you need to get in the market and start having those discussions. So, I just hope it's somebody that has campus experience so they know, kind of how to navigate what we're doing on our campuses. Whomever it is, I know I'm going to get behind them and support them and do everything I can to make our conference great, because I do think this can be a great conference, and I do think there's a tremendous amount of upside. So again, I think they've got to have a good Rolodex of people around the country and media and corporate partners, because I think there's an upside there that we can do a better job on. So whomever it is, I think there was a great opportunity, and I'm going to support them and work with them as best I can to make our conference great.
Got time for a couple more. Brian Howell.
Hey, Rick, a quick question for you. I know you guys recently hired a nutritionist for football. I was curious if that's an additional staff member, and also as a follow-up to that, what kind of impact does that have for your program when you can have somebody that is in charge of that just for the football program?
Well, look, we had Tim DeLeo, who was in that role. Tim left a couple months ago. But I think having a nutritionist specifically focused on football is important. Again, for us, we need to, at some point, we're hoping that we can get back into eating in person, so we can do a better job of educating student athletes on what they're putting in their bodies, whether they need to gain weight, lose some weight, whatever that scenario is. But I do know that Colby is who we hired, and she is on the line, so she sees the student athletes when they come through. She can talk to them about what they're doing. We'll, as we get hopefully opening up a little bit more, I think there'll be a big impact on that. But she's terrific, and she's already got a great relationship with our student athletes, and I think it's going to really help us in ensuring that our student athletes are in the right framework from a nutrition standpoint.
And Justin Guerrero.
Rick, in about a week's time, it'll be just about 8 months since the corporate partnership with PointsBet was announced. I'm just wondering, as you reflect on these last couple months leading up to the first of 5 years of this partnership, how you evaluate the success that the partnership has brought. And also, I know a big part of that partnership was the support provided to the student athletes in that career development program, and if your expectations in that respect.
Well, look, we're kind of navigating, a new world in that regard. I mean, I know there's some other schools that have partnerships with somebody like PointsBet, but I think from the career and leadership standpoint, internships, those kind of things, I think it's going to be really good for us. How this partnership evolves really, will be about communication and education, and we want to educate our fan base. We want to educate our students and our community on gambling, and so I think there's a lot of things that we can do in that regard. But I think the unique thing about this relationship is that they are focused on our career and leadership, and that's important to us as we move forward. So that's kind of what my thoughts are on that. And I haven't sat down with PointsBet since we announced it, but we'll start having those discussions as we get into the summer on what that'll look like.
Okay, does anybody else have a final question for Rick? Looking at the chat, it's drum roll 3, 2, 1. Okay, Rick, thanks for taking the time out to join us today. We'll do another one of these at some point in summer at the end of the year.
That'd be great. Maybe we can do it at the KUSA Classic again. That would be great. But anyway, I appreciate everybody being on. Good luck with everything. Stay safe, and have a great day. Go Buffs.
Great.
Thanks all.
Thanks everyone for hopping on. See you after spring football tomorrow.
Appreciate it, Dave. Thanks.
Sure.